Hello. So in yesterday's video, I talked about toxic hope, which is the hope that you have that is really an addiction to this idea that somebody or something or yourself is going to change when when it's out of our control. Okay. Toxic hope is when, your spouse or your child or your parent or your coworker or your boss or whoever, you're sitting there saying, well, I hope they'll change. I hope that they change their life. I hope they make different decisions. I hope they do what I think that they should do with their life. And when it becomes this fixation, that is toxic. That is the toxic hope. I think it's appropriate to hold space for people to change and even, to hope that they do, as long as we release the attachment to it. I guess that's what toxic hope really comes down to, is the attachment. They better repent or else, that big feeling of despair and frenetic, the freak out. Honestly, the word coming into my mind is excitotoxic, which is like a toxicology term, but like when we feel that feeling of they have to change because I think they should change, that is when it gets to be toxic. So, in yesterday's video, I had talked about a situation in my own life where I had to really like come to terms with that I was engaging in toxic hope and that I was still operating from, I guess you could say, like the addiction to the idea of somebody else changing in my life and the addiction to the idea of myself changing in my life, which is a little bit unlikely at this point. I'm like, you know, and I want to talk about that more in another video, but this idea that a lot of us, we try to change and change to be something that we actually are not. And what if what if the kinds of changes that people experience are the changes that bring them to what they are instead of what they are not? And so if you're trying to change yourself into something that you truly are not, there is not a lot of support for that in the universe. Um, our job is to step into what we actually are in healthy ways, because I think that I'm thinking of the natal chart. I'm thinking of how um, Leo, Aries, Aquarius, Taurus, Sagittarius, all of these different um, signs in the chart and all of our planetary alignments that show up for ourselves, there's healthy and unhealthy expressions of all of those. And we have a lot of support to step into either side of that equation. But do we have a ton of support to step into a whole random thing that is not even in the chart? I don't know. Um, I don't think it's as likely as it is. I've been thinking a lot about um, the big scripture guys that make big changes. That would be Alma the Younger and Saul, who became Paul in the New Testament. And in both cases, they had big changes, but were they really? Because they both were very intense men who, when they believed something, they believed it 1,000% and were absolutely committed to bringing as many people along with them as they possibly could. And they had a big change, but it didn't change who they were. It changed their perspective. I actually wonder if, on an energetic level, this was a polarity shift where they had confused good and evil, and like, bing, they get that sorted out, and they're still the same person. And to some degree, they're still engaging in the same behaviors, but in a healthy way, instead of the unhealthy way. I hope this is making any sense. Anyway, I'll talk about me for a little minute because I think it's important. I sat there and told myself, okay, I need to let go of the hope that this situation will change, that this person will change, that I will change, and I just need to sit with my feelings. And I had no intentions of engaging with the other people involved in this situation because I just like to do everything by myself and I just want to process my feelings by myself. But this person asked, like, can we talk about this situation? Like, I can tell you're upset and I want to hear what you have to say. And now I feel like I'll cry again, but In my book, Magnetic Femininity, I talk about how to have vulnerable conversations. It's in chapter 4, super recommended. If you haven't read it, please go read it. It will revolutionize your conversations because I was able to have this conversation where I just focused on my own body feelings, my own emotions without shifting into blame and without saying like, PS, this is all your fault. PS, why did you make this situation so horrible? You know, um, I was able to just focus on like, I feel a lot of stress because of what's happening. You know, I am feeling a lot of despair because of this situation. And I went into it not expecting a change and not hoping for a change, you know, because hope still has this element of control when we're, you know, in a scriptural setting, you're supposed to put your hope in like Christ and like the resurrection and God's justice and that everything's going to be made right in the end. We're not supposed to put our hope in individuals. Our hope should not be that our kid suddenly gets out of rehab and is totally normal now. Like, that's not the hope. Like, you can have that hope in a healthy way, as long as it's not making you a crazy person because you fixate on it and obsess over it and be addicted to it. Our hope is that God is going to sort it all out in the end. Our hope is that God has it under control. That's the hope. The hope is not that everybody else around us is going to get their crap together and live their life the way we think they should live their life. That is not what we should be hoping for, right? So I went into this conversation, um, I guess you could say hopeless, in the sense that I didn't go into it hoping for a particular outcome. The only outcome I wanted was to express my feelings without coming from a space of judgment or blame. And I feel like I did it. And the most shocking thing about it was that when I let go of that expectation, and the hope, that fixation on like, "Gall, just can you please change? Can you just be different, please?" I went into it feeling like this is probably not going to change, but the important thing is that I feel my feelings. That's the important thing. And changes were made. Let's just put it that way. Um, and I was surprised. I was surprised at how me just showing up and sharing my heart without blaming and without that energy of like, will you please just change? Will you please just fix this? This is your fault. When I let that go and just showed up without that, um, things did change when I didn't expect them to. And interestingly, I had another friend who was dealing with a similar situation in her life where she had, you know, this big drama going on in an interpersonal relationship, and she just had to feel her feelings and start coming to terms with the fact like, okay, maybe this will never change, maybe this person will never change. And it's kind of like, as soon as she got into this mental space of like, actually, what if I let this go? What if I stopped obsessing over the other person changing? And then like 2 hours later, the other person was like, "You know what? I'm really sorry. Yeah, we should rethink how we're doing things." And all of a sudden, like, she has this miracle as well. Miracles happen when we let go of our attachment to the outcome and when we let go of our obsession with the idea that we're right, because we're mostly not right. That's the big secret of humanity. Everyone is mostly wrong most of the time. And that has been true for all of history. I mean, I think we can see that in the obvious examples of things like, I don't know, the the come on, brain. I mean, like the sun going around the earth, or earth going around the sun, or like all these different things. Um, which I know things like this are like hotly debated right now, but there's just a lot of examples. We haven't known a lot of things about how the world works, and now we think we know a lot of things about how the world works, and I would bet that in most cases we're wrong. My mom has this old set of encyclopedias, and they're from when she was a child in what, like the 70s or something, and they talk about how the sun is made of solarium, hypothetical element, and it talks about, I mean, like, she was in school when they decided that actually the Earth is on tectonic plates, like, the tectonic plate theory was not a thing when our grandparents were children. We've learned a lot, and many of the things that we think we have learned are probably wrong, and most people have been wrong about almost everything in the whole world the whole time. Did you know, is it Archimedes? I can't remember. One of these ancient philosophers, it's Plato. Sorry, it's Plato. Plato literally believed that birds during the winter burrowed into the ground and hibernated. This is what he taught. This was the wisdom for hundreds and hundreds of years until I think the 1700s. There was a bird that came up for the summer in Northern Europe, and it had an African javelin through its wing, and that was the first time in history that people understood the migration of birds. Can you believe that? But this is true. I can't remember it. I think it might be called a speared ptarmigan. If you like Google it, I'll have to look it up. But it's happened a couple of times. But this was a revolutionary information for the entire planet. Nobody knew that when birds disappear in the winter, they're not asleep under the ground. They actually flew to somewhere warmer. No one knew that. We have made so many incorrect assumptions about how everything works through time, and we still do. And that's the big secret. It's easy to look at our modern life and think, "Oh, we've got it all figured out." But the secret is that we don't. We don't have it figured out on a macro level, and we certainly don't have it figured out on the micro level, right? On a personal level. This has been very grounding for me to come to terms with this and realize, like, I am mostly wrong most of the time. I am. And like just giving myself permission to be mostly wrong most of the time is like very freeing, to release yourself from the expectation of being right all the time. Like no one is. And we have to let go of that expectation if we're going to be functional people. We have to let go of needing to be right. And even, I think it's okay to want to be right as long as you're not attached to it. You know, we have to let go of that attachment. And when we do let go of that attachment, everything changes and people change. The situations that we thought would never change, they start to change as soon as we let go of our attachment. Which brings me to some important stuff that's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow, the sun enters Virgo, famously judgmental and very discerning, very discriminatory, not in the racial sense, but in the sense of noticing the differences between things and ranking and prioritizing. Virgo loves analysis. It loves stacking things in the order that they should go in and making sure that everything lines up and makes logical sense. And Virgo is deeply attached to being right. I would say of all of the signs of the zodiac, Virgo is the one that will get her panties in a wad if she is not right. She has to be right. And letting go of that is possible. It is possible, and it can be deeply hard. And remember, everybody has Virgo in their chart. You might not have planets in Virgo in your chart, but you do have Virgo energy in your chart. And that Virgo energy, um, where it is where you do not want to be wrong. You want to be right, and you want to be right all the time. And so realizing that, and then giving yourself permission to be wrong in that area of your life in particular can be a really, really powerful experience. And I do recommend it. You know, I still get attached to being right. I still would prefer to be right. I'm a Virgo, I should say. I'm a Virgo sun. My birthday's coming right up. But it's okay not to be right all the time. And I think this exact Virgo season with, we have Mercury in retrograde to kick us off. We have Saturn in retrograde in Pisces, which is opposing Virgo. And so the sun in about 2.5 weeks is going to be exactly opposite Saturn, and Saturn's in retrograde. And so we're going to have a lot of heavenly support right now to look at the harvest. Saturn is the boss of the harvest, the law of the harvest. He's the god of karma. And Virgo is the sign of the harvest. Saturn actually rules Capricorn, the other earth sign. But I think Saturn and Virgo have a lot in common. And when that alignment shows up, that opposition, and as we build up to it, we just are really invited to take a good look at our own priorities and make sure that our priorities are truly logical, and that they have the right motivations. Okay. Virgo is all about, um, I mean, it's all about a lot of things, but one of its big preoccupations is the motivation and being motivated from a space of purity and service, instead of more like self-serving goals. And so, right now, today, this is my big challenge for you is to look at yourself and really get real about what you're attached to. Where are you attached to being right? And maybe you say, I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but really, I want you to imagine if the person you respect the most in the world came up to you and said, "Actually, you're wrong about this." How would you handle it? Are you going to handle that with grace or not? And maybe it's worth it to sit with that and just feel it. You don't have to fix yourself, you don't have to like do anything, but like just to bring it into your awareness, I think is really powerful. Um when Oh my gosh, what was I saying? We gotta become more aware of where we are obsessed with being right. We got to become more aware of our motivations. Okay. Where are we motivated? What is motivating us to move forward in life? And this Virgo energy is inviting us to become a little more selfless. It's inviting us to maybe take a step back from where we are obsessing about ourselves and think in a new way about how we might be able to bless other people. How could I use what I have to serve somebody else today? So that is really powerful stuff. And it all starts tomorrow as the sun enters Virgo, it exits Leo and enters Virgo, the time of the year where we get to reprioritize our lives. And this is, of course, when, for many people, school is starting again, which is talk about a big shift in schedules and in responsibilities and motivations. Virgo is the sign of routines, daily routines, and with the new start of school and like new schedules with the school year, um, you can just see how the world is set up that, you know, the divine clock that we all live in is supporting us through it and aligning everything so that as we have these big shifts in daily routines, we have also the divine support to get us through it. So these are things to have on your mind today. People can change. People can change and they do change. And I think that we change to become more of who we actually are in healthy ways. We let go of how we were expressing ourselves in the unhealthy space, and we step into expressing ourselves in a healthy space. Our job is to release our attachment to these changes showing up in particular ways. The more we can accept other people where they are on their journey, the more it frees them up to be open to making the changes that they want to make. And maybe those changes are not going to be the same changes that you think they should make, but you're not the smartest person in the room. I'm not the smartest person. We have a creator that has it all under control, and we are on a timeline that is much faster than we can ever imagine. The yogis and the Christians and probably some other religious sects believe in that period of 1,000 years after Christ comes, between Christ's return and final judgment, 1,000 years for everybody to get their stuff together. The yogis don't talk about it in terms of Jesus or the Christ consciousness, but they talk about 1,000 years of peace where everybody is working together towards this common goal, before kind of the next stage of existence takes place. And so if we have 1,000 years minimum between now and final judgment, it's really safe to let go of our attachment to what's happening like right here, especially with other people. It can be safe to let other people have their experience, even if we don't like it, even if they're suffering, even if we think if they would just listen to me, their life would be so much better. They would have so much less pain. They would be so much healthier. They'd be so much happier. Well, you're probably right. Maybe. And maybe you're not, but it's not your life. And it's not your job to fix them. And it's okay to let them have their experience and to trust that we have plenty of time. There's plenty of time and everything is going to work out the way it needs to work out. God is smarter than any one of us here, and there's no way that you can make decisions so dumb and so bad that God can't help you figure it out if you wanna figure it out. Okay, that's what I got for you today, guys. Remember to write in your journal, your pages. My child did that, but front, back, front, 3 pages just to clear out your subconscious mind. Come hang out on Facebook, Intuitive Healing with Ali Duzette. I love you and I pray for you. I hope that your day is good. Bye.